First on the agenda this morning is House File 3446, Representative Kayla Bergs, UI bill. Um, Chair Becker Fenn will move that House File 3446 be re-referred to the Ways and Means bill. And I do see that we also have an author's amendment, a DE1 amendment. Chair Becker Fenn will move the adoption of the DE1 amendment. Representative Berg, welcome to committee, and please explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This amendment is just basically to get the bill in the order which I prefer, which is to qualify workers to get unemployment insurance immediately.
Okay. All those in favor of adopting the DE1 amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. To your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. As a proud rank and file union member, I am honored and humbled to be able to bring this bill before you today. Unions provide workers a stronger voice on the job, and as a result, unions also significantly reduce wage gaps between men and women, between white workers and people of color and indigenous workers. Despite this, employers still maintain significant power over workers and know that time is on their side if they can draw out, negotiations with their workers. This is because employers understand the incredible burden that a strike places on workers, particularly low-wage workers who can't afford to support their families if they go out on strike. Which is why strikes, especially those lasting more than a week, are not only uncommon, but are of a last resort to workers. We often witness this power imbalance in seemingly unending bargaining over first contracts, as we continue to see with Starbucks. We see it in employers forcing workers into long, open-ended strikes in order to get workers to accept lower wages and benefits, which is a strategy we saw during the Writers Guild strike last year, when one studio executive told an industry news outlet that, quote, "The end game is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses," end quote. And make no mistake, workers are not going on long, open-ended strikes voluntarily in the same way that someone might choose to get a new job. They are forced out on strike by their employer's refusal to bargain a fair contract when there is no other choice. This bill will grant striking workers the same access to their unemployment benefits as any other worker, which already includes locked-out workers. And like other workers, striking workers would need to observe the same non-payable week, which means that only those uncommon strikes lasting more than a week will result in any unemployment insurance benefits being paid to striking workers. But even this will help reduce the power imbalance that workers face as they bargain for not just their own wages, benefits, and safety, but for the good of their families, their community, and future workers in their industries, which helps the entire economy. However, UI only provides partial wage replacement to merely soften the risk to workers' families. So this bill only goes so far in leveling the playing field, and strikes will continue to be a last resort. According to a report released just yesterday by the North Star Institute, this proposal is estimated to cost the UI Trust Fund just 0.3%, which will be replenished through the established UI premium process, most directly affecting those employers who will see a higher experience rating from forcing their workers out on strikes over unfair labor practices. This deterrent is yet one more way that this bill would help to level the playing field in bargaining. Let's not forget that we, here in this room, the legislature, poured $2.7 billion into the UI Trust Fund, rather than requiring employers to replenish that trust fund through the established process after the initial period of the pandemic, and saving millions of dollars of obligations under the law for each of our state's largest employers. I am asking for your support for House File 3446, Senate File 3588, to help close some of the power imbalance that employers hold to give workers a chance to bargain for fair contracts that provide livable wages, affordable benefits, and a safe workplace, and in turn support our entire Minnesota economy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Berg. I believe you have some testifiers. So the first one is Bart Anderson. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for record and share your pronouns if you like. And please limit your testimony to 2 minutes, as we have a long list of testifiers here, and we want to allow time for members to ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, members. My name is Bart Anderson. For the last 7 months, I have served as interim executive director for ASME Council 5. On behalf of ASME Council 5, I'm here to strongly support the passage of House File 3446 and Senate File 3588, which will make Minnesota the third state where striking workers can have access to unemployment insurance benefits. I want to thank Representative Berg, Senator Mohammed, among others, for prioritizing the working people of Minnesota. The decisions workers make when they collectively vote to go out on strike are never taken lightly. It's one that comes with enormous financial consideration and is a tactic of last resort. Partial wage replacement provided through unemployment insurance will not change these facts. I know that from my own personal experience. Before my time working for ASME, I was an ASME member. I was a bridge inspector for the Department of Transportation, where I started back in 1997. In 2001, the last time state workers went out on strike, I had a very young family at home. Something that was true then and is still true today: childcare is not cheap. Luckily, that strike didn't go into a third week, and thankfully, the financial hardship my family experienced at the time didn't drag on either. But it was difficult. Going 2 or 3 weeks without pay is really hard for any worker. And even under this proposal, having a strike go on longer than a few weeks, when the only financial support a worker will receive is 50% or less of their average weekly wage, going out on strike will still be financially challenging. But at least workers won't be starved back to work. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story. Next is Jake Schweitzer. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record and feel free to share your pronouns if you'd like, and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Zhang, members of the committee. My name is Jake Schweitzer, and I am the Executive Director of North Star Policy Action. We are a think tank that promotes data-driven solutions to help working Minnesotans thrive. I'm here to speak in favor of House File 3446. One critical obstacle to making Minnesota a better state for working people is rising inequality. Between 2009 and 2021, corporate profits in the United States grew 3 times more than average earnings. In 1965, CEOs made 21 times more than their average worker. Today, they make 344 times more. When workers advocate for better pay to reduce this inequality, this is the reality they face. And if they attempt to use their most powerful tool, their ability to strike and withhold their labor, this is the imbalance that billionaire-backed corporations understand, that they can use their considerable profits to engage in bad faith negotiating tactics and simply wait out their poorly paid workers. Representative Berg already alluded to the comments from a Hollywood executive. Workers should not be forced to choose between losing their homes and fighting for their dignity. To bring balance to this equation, Minnesota should follow the model of other states and expand unemployment insurance to cover striking workers. Doing so will provide workers with peace of mind, knowing that if they need to strike, they will have access to a small but essential level of assistance to protect their families from hardship. To evaluate the impact of this expansion, North Star analyzed the costs and benefits of the state taking this step. On the cost side, we found that providing striking workers with UI would represent between just 0.2 and 0.3% of all UI claims paid out by the state. This minuscule cost is greatly overshadowed by the tremendous benefits of this change. Our analysis shows that providing striking workers with unemployment insurance can move the state toward a better balance between corporate and worker power, all while incurring a negligible cost. In doing so, Minnesota can prevent its population from being forced to choose between feeding their families and fighting for the better pay, family-sustaining benefits, and safe working conditions that allow working people in Minnesota to thrive. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you to testify. Next is Todd Dahlstrom. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record. Feel free to share your pronouns you like and proceed with your testimony.
Todd Dahlstrom. So good morning, Mr. Chair and the committee members. My name is Todd Dahlstrom. I'm the Organizing and Growth Director for the Minnesota AFL-CIO, the state's federation of more than 1,000 local unions who represent over 300,000 working people in every corner of our state in nearly every kind of job. I'm here to speak in favor of House File 3446. Our labor movement envisions a state where all working people have safe workplaces, a job that can sustain a family, time to spend with a family, and a dignified retirement. Both historically and to this day, workers taking collective action, including going on strike, has been the most effective way to move us closer to that vision. While strikes are the most effective tactic for workers to win gains, a strike also carries the most risk. Federal labor laws are tilted in favor of the employers, who can lock out and temporarily replace workers, stall negotiations, make threats, cut health care, and more. For example, when a manager locks out workers, they aren't making a personal sacrifice. They don't lose a penny of pay or their health benefits. But when workers decide to go on strike, it often means no pay for workers and families for an uncertain amount of time. Mr. Chair and committee members, we can't change federal labor law here in St. Paul, but we can balance the scales for working Minnesotans by allowing workers to access unemployment insurance during a strike. Access to UI will not only keep food on the tables for working families, but will also mean shorter strikes. When managers know that workers have a lifeline, they lose the incentive to what, once again, the Disney CEO, Bob Iger, calling during the workers' strike, quote, starve them out before going back to the table. Mr. Chair and representatives, let's continue making Minnesota the best state for workers by passing House File 3446. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Next is John Councilman. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record. Feel free to share your pronouns and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is John Councilman. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of UAW Local 125. I work at the Stellantis Parts Distribution Center in Plymouth. I'm here to speak in favor of House File 3446. Along with 145,000 of my fellow auto workers, I was one of a portion of that was on strike against my employer in the weeks of September and October for 5 weeks. Going on strike was the last resort to get my company to negotiate a fair contract. Even though we had a strike authorization vote of 98%, I don't know any one of us that actually wanted to go on strike. The uncertainty of no or reduced income for an unknown amount of time was very stressful and worrying. We got by with a small portion of strike assistance from our union strike fund, but if we didn't have that lifeline, it would have been even more difficult to provide for some of the basic needs for our families. Since we had drastically reduced income for over a month, I found out we all could have applied for SNAP benefits. As I was working on gathering that information, we ended up getting a tentative agreement, so we never had to submit for those benefits. The strike I was on didn't have to take 5 weeks because these employers knew what their top offer was. Managers didn't sacrifice a penny while they tried to starve us out. And despite pleading poverty for weeks, they ended up agreeing to a record 4-year contract. And while they're pleading poverty, they made enough money last year to provide average profit sharing checks of $13,800 per worker. Our contract win led to wage increases across the auto industry for both union and non-union workers alike, because when union workers win at the negotiating table, all workers end up winning. Workers need to be eligible for unemployment insurance while on strike, both to help us provide for our families, while we fight for the wages and benefits that we deserve, and to motivate employers to negotiate a faster end to the strike or a faster contract settlement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing your story. Next is Jay Shetland. Please identify yourself for, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Alexia Hitchings. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record. Share your pronouns if you like and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Alexia Hitchings, and I've been a registered nurse in the metro area for the past 12 years. I'm here to testify in support of the House File 3446 that expands unemployment access to striking workers. I've been on strike 3 times, twice in 2016 and again in 2022. As someone who has a family and cares for the community and my own home to heat, I can tell you that I do not want to go on strike. Nurses do not want to strike, but collective action is the most effective way for us workers to advocate for ourselves and for ourselves to improve our work conditions. It has been the only way for us to fight for safe staffing while fighting back against billion-dollar healthcare corporations who want us to do more with less. Our employers have spent millions and millions of dollars in hiring temporary workers to replace us during a strike, and they are happy to spend that money rather than a bargain a fair contract with us. I am proud to have gone on strike in the past, but it comes at a cost. When I went on strike for 1 week and then again for 6 weeks in 2016, it was a huge burden on my family, on myself and my family. We stopped all activities for our young kids because I did not know when we would work again. I became sick at the end of the 2016 strike. We lost our health insurance for a month. Without insurance and income, I held off on going to the doctors until the day we got our insurance back after the strike ended. I had a sinus infection that became so bad it ruptured my eardrum, and I had hearing loss for several months. A simple sinus infection turned into a huge health event for me because I was scared to incur more health bills than my family could afford. It took a long time for us to financially recover from that 6-week strike. I was better prepared for the 2022 strike, but I saw my coworkers struggle going up against our multi-billion-dollar employer in our fight for safe staffing at the bedside. I strike because I want my children to have a better working condition than I do. I strike because I want my coworkers to have safe working conditions. I strike because I care about my patients and I want them to receive the best care possible. I strike because my employer forces me to, because our nation's labor laws remain heavily skewed in favor of employers, giving them the ability to lock us out, temporarily replace us, stall negotiations, make threats, and cut off our health care. And when managers legally lock out workers, they don't lose a penny of their pay or health benefits. But when we do strike, we do not have a choice. This pill comes with a lifeline for some. While unemployment insurance won't cover my entire income, it would allow me to feed my children, go to the emergency room if I need to, and prevent my employer from starving us out in a tactic to delay negotiations and force us to accept a contract that is harmful. If our employer knew we had this lifeline, there would be more equitability bargaining for negotiation, fair contract, perhaps shortening or preventing strikes in the future. Thank you for your time today, and thank you, Representative Berg, for carrying this pro-worker, pro-nurse, pro-patient bill. I hope this committee will support it.
Thank you. Next is Jay from United Steelworkers. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record, and share your pronouns if you like, and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Zhang and members of the committee. My name is Jay Chatlin, and I am president of the United Steelworkers Local 142B in Mankato, Minnesota. Representative Berg, thank you for introducing this legislation. In July of '23, myself and my members were forced to go on strike because of unsafe working conditions and the employer's unwillingness to bargain in good faith. My employer refused to implement safety measures to provide safe working conditions for myself and my colleagues. The overall OSHA recordable rate for the foundry I work in was 14%, with some departments having an OSHA recordable rate as high as 98.98%. My employer utilized a behavioral-based safety program to drive down OSHA recordable rates. Behavioral-based safety programs use discipline, threats of discipline, and monetary bonuses to discourage reporting of injuries. This approach rarely addresses safety hazards in the workplace. For example, if a guard is missing on a piece of equipment, an employee loses a tip of their finger, they'll discipline that employee without addressing actual hazards. Then another employee will be injured at the same hazard. This is why we see OSHA recordable rates as high as 98.98%. Prior to the expiration of our contract, we actively tried to make changes to the safety culture within the foundry. The employer repeatedly told us, if it isn't broken, why fix it? But when you have an OSHA recordable rate at 98.98%, the process is certainly broken. When we started contract negotiations, we made it clear that safety was our #1 priority. Our employer refused to bargain over safety and continued to respond with, if it isn't broken, why fix it? Even when we could clearly show the safety program was broken, my employer refused to bargain in good faith. Employees literally had to choose between paying their bills or going on strike to protect themselves from being injured. We ultimately made the choice to go on strike, but I can tell you that was a very hard decision. Long story short, the strike lasted for 11 days, and we were able to secure language that drastically changed the safety culture. Without the strike, this would never have happened. Employees should never have to make the choice between paying their bills or working in an unsafe workplace. This legislation would allow workers to strike for a safe working place while being able to feed their families. I support this legislation. I would ask all of you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next is Sarah Gallert from Hastings Food Service Worker. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record. Feel free to share your pronouns if you like, and proceed with your testimony.
Chair and members, my name is Sarah Gallup. I'm a short-hour cook or food service worker from Hastings. I was part of the Hastings Food Service strike last year. That's why I'm here today supporting this bill. Before starting the Hastings Public School, I was a stay-at-home mom living with a disability. I thought food service would be perfect for my job because of the short hours and the school schedule matches my kids. My son goes to the middle school where I work. These are difficult, fast-paced jobs, and we deserve the respect. Recently, my school was supposed to have a pizza party. Domino's delivered the pizzas to the wrong school. We had 20 minutes to figure out what we were doing for the kids. Thankfully, they didn't know. Our kids starting wages are $13.85 an hour, less than McDonald's or most other places. No one wants to strike, but I favor to because we deserve better. No one wants to strike. Okay. No one wants to strike, but I favor the strike because we deserve better. Our jobs deserve respect and appreciation. They wanted to offer my supervisor a 35-cent raise for being there 25 years. I started my job in October, and I felt I had finally gotten my head above water when we got out on strike on February 6th. Being without my school income hurt, and the support from my union could offer me, strike wasn't enough. The district could have ended the strike at any time. We are only about $150,000 apart in negotiations, and one of the school board meetings during the strike, contractor was installing signs in front of our schools to look better in the rocks. If the rocks on the signs match the color of the bricks in the buildings, but it would cost another $150,000. District management was happy to spend more on rocks than on the caring adults who nourish our children. This bill would help workers like me stand up for and fight for what we deserve, and I encourage you to support it, please.
Thank you for your testimony. Next is Dr. Terrence Morrow from the Minnesota School Boards Association. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record and share your pronouns if you like, and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Terry Morrow. I am the Legal and Policy Director for the Minnesota School Boards Association, and would like to be really clear. We certainly respect staff. We respect every one of the experiences that's been described here so far this morning. I come today to describe the unique situation that school districts would face under this bill. The way that unemployment works, the state does pay the unemployment benefits directly to staff. To workers who, in this case, are on strike. The school districts then reimburse the state fund. So that amount is actually finally, ultimately paid by the school district. Now, I'd like to work through a hypothetical with you. If, for example, teachers were to go on strike under this bill, classes would not be held each day that the teachers were on strike. I'm not picking on teachers. I'm simply saying school would not be held each day of that strike. The school district would pay the unemployment benefits ultimately for those teachers. And then when school is then resumed and those class days are made up, the districts would pay again. So in essence, paying twice for a single day of instruction for our staff. The impact on property taxpayers would be significant because schools can pass along unemployment benefit costs to property taxpayers. This would then end up being a property tax increase to the local communities. Again, schools are unique. Board members do not make profit sharing. Board members do not make the type of compensation that has been correctly described in other situations. What we're asking for here today is to consider the unique situation schools are in under this bill. We don't have the budget to pay twice. We understand the need. We want to work well with all of our employees. We believe in balanced negotiations, and we look forward to working with Representative Berg to address the unique problem that school districts and schools and students would face under this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next is Hunter Cantrell. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record. Share your pronouns if you like, and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Hunter Cantrell. My pronouns are he, him. I am here today as a former state representative, former union member, current medical student, to testify strongly in favor of this nation-leading bill. And I thank Representative Berg for her tireless work and advocacy on this and her decades of work in the labor movement. I'm here because working people across all sectors, including my sector of healthcare and education, with many Minnesota educators potentially being forced out onto the picket line in the near future to save their profession, are suffering. Corporations continue to make record profits while heavily investing in anti-union law firms that actively stall collective bargaining negotiations and refuse to agree to basic safety reforms and compensation increases necessary for workers to feel safe and stable in the workplace. We are at a historic junction in the movement to secure economic prosperity for the whole working class in Minnesota, especially at a time of soaring corporate profits and unfettered price gouging while many working families are grappling with the cost of living crisis. For too long, the scales of power have been weighted against working people, with obvious advantages being cemented on the side of wealthy employers and big corporations. Well, today, we are saying no more. Today, with this bill, we are saying that when you as a corporation engage in bad faith tactics designed to deliberately frustrate the collective bargaining process and drive workers to the picket line, whose labor is often exploited and from which we all benefit so greatly, that these workers will not be abandoned and starved of financial stability. I want to see businesses and workers alike thrive, but workers need financial stability in their lives and safety in the workplace. As Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, no work is insignificant. All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance. Thank you, and I urge passage of the bill. Thanks.
Thank you, Hunter Cantrell. Next is Dean Benson from Teamsters Local 120. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record. Feel free to share your pronouns and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chair and committee members, my name is Dean Benson, and I'm a proud retiree of Teamsters Local 120, and I'm here to speak in favor of House File 3446. I've worked at the Marathon St. Paul Park Refinery for 19 years and retired in 2023. As many of you know, I was locked out of my job in 2021 with 200 of my union brothers and sisters. This lockout turned into a strike, and it lasted 6 months. We won that fight, but only because we had the support we needed to keep the fight going. This isn't always the case, because Marathon did what many large corporations do. When their workers are seeking fair contracts, they tried to starve us out. If they kept us from working long enough, they believed we'd become desperate enough to get back to work, so desperate that we'd ignore all our grievances just to get a paycheck again. This isn't an anomaly. This is the playbook for strike breakers. The thing is, when workers go on strike, the stakes are very different for two sides. Corporate bosses get mean phone calls, upset shareholders, and annoyed customers. Hardworking men and women get tough decisions about putting food on the table, medicine in their cabinet, and a roof over their head. We went on strike at Marathon because we knew our workplace wasn't safe enough. Because we wanted to know that we were gonna come home from work and see our families each day. We didn't make the choice lightly. Strikes are the last option on the table, but we did it for the safety of our colleagues, for the community, and around the refinery. This legislation would make it easier for those in similar situations to fight for the safety of themselves and others. It would make it harder for corporations to starve out workers who are asking for safe and healthy workplaces, a living wage, or more dignity in their work. It would help ensure that labor disputes are settled at the negotiating table, not at the workers' kitchen table. So I ask you, as you think about this bill and which way you're gonna vote, do you support the act of starving out hardworking families, or should we level the playing field with this legislation? Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I am told from Mr. Reese that we have a last-minute testifier from the League of Minnesota Cities. So if you are here, welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record. Feel free to show your pronouns and proceed with your testimony.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lisa Schaefer, and I'm the Human Resources Director for the League of Minnesota Cities. First, I'd like to recognize the long history of successful Minnesota collective bargaining, especially in public sector. It's long given employers and employees the ability to meet and negotiate in good faith, and has, especially in many Minnesota cities, pretty rarely in our history led to actual strikes. The reason this bill is so concerning for cities and public employers is that in the event of a strike, there are still fundamental services that need to be provided, especially for public safety in an emergency. So if there's a water main break or a snow plow, streets need to be plowed so that emergency vehicles can get through. And if a bargaining group is going on strike, the city would still need to provide coverage for that. This bill would pay unemployment benefits for striking workers, and just as the School Boards Association had described, cities are also reimbursing employers. So that means the entire cost of unemployment benefits is charged back to the city in the event that employees are on strike. The intent of unemployment has been to provide employees with unemployment benefits if they are unable to work, or if they're locked out, or if work is not available through no fault of their own. And we would like to respectfully request that that remain in place. Included in your packet is a letter on behalf of League of Minnesota Cities. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing that there are no more testifiers on the list, we will move to discussion of the bill. And first on the list is Lee Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the author of the bill, Representative Berg, I've been here for 10 years, and I meet with our union members, and thank you all for being here today. This is important for us to hear. I've met with them every year, from AFSCME to folks around our areas, and this is, I guess, a little surprising because this has never come up in our discussions before, this benefit. And I don't know if this has this been brought to the legislature before, this question about paying folks on unemployment insurance during a strike. So has this been proposed before? And why haven't I heard of this before? Because again, we have great relationships with our construction trades and things, so I'm just curious about that. Thank you.
Representative Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great question, Representative Baker. I've only been here 4 years, so I'm not sure if it's been brought to the legislature before. Perhaps research.
Ms. James.
Mr. Chair, Representative Baker, I am not aware of anything offhand, but that's something I could certainly research for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, and I have a couple more questions. And because of that, again, I hear concerns about, I think this worker safety thing has really gone a long ways, and our unions have a lot of things to celebrate because our workplaces are safer because of their voices. But I've heard, in the last couple of years, they're really concerned about things that are happening that they didn't ask for, like paid family and things like that that were not part of their negotiating table. So I hear both sides of this. So this is why I keep asking. Again, my concern with this bill is that you said 0.3% of the UI fund. I'll ask you this question in twofold. What does that number look like? Because that's a real number, and it's bigger than 0.3 of something. So also, as we heard from the School Board Association and even the cities, there are uniquenesses to all types of workers. And some of them, like, for example, teachers, if they go on strike, they typically negotiate then for back pay from the day they left. And I know I'm not saying that this delay in payment is easy for anyone, but that typically is renegotiated or negotiated part of the contract. How does that then get paid back to the funds? It's kind of a two-question thing, if you could tell me that.
Representative Berg.
Thank you, Chair. So trying to remember both of your questions. I would have research answer what the 0.3% actually looks like number-wise. Per your other questions, actually, the paid family medical leave, the earned sick and safe time, some of the things that we put in place by the state are actually incredibly appreciated by our labor friends and workers. And so that actually frees up more of their contract for negotiating for other things that they've been asking for. And so that is not something that our labor friends are actually concerned about. They appreciate that. In terms of different unique situations per industry, you're always going to have that. For example, with the schools and school workers, they actually only have to pay back 50% into the strike fund, which is still 50% less than the budgeted amount for their workers for that time. So it's a little bit less than it sounds like. But I would go ahead and have Marta talk about what the numbers look like, and we can address the other things again.
Ms. James.
Mr. Chair, I'll defer to my fiscal analyst colleague.
Ms. Ing.
Mr. Chair, a fiscal note has been requested. I'm not sure where that number came from.
Okay. Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just finally, again, different members say different things about the benefits that they've asked for. Now, I'm not going to disagree that there's a lot of them that want some of these benefits, but I know union members are very, very focused on what they want. They want to be able to talk about at the union negotiating table. I've learned that very much over my years here. And finally, maybe my question is, the Unemployment Advisory Council is very involved in how our fund is, how it's stable. Labor and management are both there. Has this been proposed to the council, and what was their maybe either recommendations or what was their feedback to you when you wrote this bill about what did the Advisory Council say about this bill?
Representative Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Baker. We actually reached out to them as well as had numerous conversations with DEED, and DEED actually helped write some of the language in this bill. So prior to it being submitted and brought before your committee, we did have those conversations.
Lead Baker.
Finally, so I didn't hear the answer. Did it go to the Advisory Council? Did they give you a recommendation on this bill? That's different than DEED.
Representative Baker. Representative Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did reach out to the Advisory Council and didn't receive any resistance or any recommendations back from them.
Thank you.
Lead Baker. Any further discussions to the bill? Chair Becca Fenn.
Thank you, Chair Zhang. And one thing I wanted to bring up, I always like for the record sort of thing is, sort of in the same way we have groups who claim they speak for all gun owners or claim they speak for all of a certain group of people. I just wanted to sort of call out, I know there's a letter in here from the NFIB and, proclaiming to speak for small businesses, and as a small business owner, they don't speak for me, and I think it's just really important that we recognize that. Often folks use the term small business as a way to gain credibility, but the reality is we could be talking about a mom and pop restaurant in your community, but we could also be talking about an employer who has up to 750 employees or makes $40 million a year, which those are vastly different organizations. And so I just wanted to point that out, that is not necessarily speaking for all small businesses. Many of us who own small businesses, our employees know us and we know them, and there's just isn't the power imbalance. And really that's what we're talking about here, is the power imbalance. The whole reason we have unions in the first place is because the power imbalance between the employer and the employees, and any individual employee on their own is not going to be able to stand up to the power that some of these large corporations and organizations have. So just wanted to call that out and kind of talk about, this is really what we're talking about philosophically here, is like, how do we balance that power so that it's not extremely unfair to working people. Somebody always benefits from the way that our systems are set up. And so I just wanted us to sort of think about it that way and not get lost in the weeds about why this is coming forward. So thank you for bringing this forward, and thank you to the testifiers.
Representative Zalesnikar.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative And I guess my question is, if you could tell me, for the states that have implemented this, that have been mentioned, are they in a fiscally sound position for their state? That's my question. And I ask that only because we have received the state budget, and we know we're going into a deficit. We are going to be spending more with the policies that we've enacted than we are taking in revenue. So I just was questioning, would like just a response on the fiscal status of the states that are doing this right now. If you could answer that.
Representative Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative. So the only other two states that provide striking workers with unemployment insurance are New Jersey and New York. And their legislation is actually different than what ours is calling for. Ours is actually ahead of theirs, which is why we call it nation leading. And I do not, quite frankly, know the fiscal state of New Jersey and New York, but I don't know if research has some idea of how what this looks like implemented in New York and New Jersey, which is still a little bit different than what we're proposing. Or otherwise, I could call Jake back up to the table to assist.
We'll have the testifier respond. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Chair Jong, thank you. Jake Schweitzer again with North Star Policy Action. Representative, to your question, this money comes out of the UI Trust Fund, so not the general fund. So I can't speak to New York and New Jersey's overall budget balance, but the key question is the UI Trust Fund here. And in our case, our UI Trust Fund is in very solid fiscal shape here in Minnesota. And Chair, if I can address the previous question about the 0.3% question, if I may. So our math looked at recent numbers of workers going on strike, how many workers tend to claim unemployment insurance, and that's how we arrived at our math. And the total estimated unemployment insurance benefits for all striking workers would be around $203,000, give or take. So that's the number we're talking about here.
Representative Zalesnikar.
Thank you. No further questions?
Any further discussion on the bill? Okay, seeing none, Representative Berg, closing comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the time today. Thank you to all of my labor friends in the crowd. Really appreciate you seeing here. So as I mentioned, I've been here 4 years, but I've been a union member for 20 years. And while we hope that there is never a need to strike, if there is a strike line, I'm on it. I have been with the nurses. I've been with Marathon. I have been with my own union, the airline unions. This is about workers being able to fight for what they deserve. But oftentimes, the way this has worked historically is that they have to give something up in order to fight for what is rightfully theirs. And it's time that we end that dynamic. As we saw today in our testimony, the stories we heard, and as we looked at it fiscally and being responsible for that, for what it actually looks like out of the UI fund, not only is this legislation possible, it's critical, and we can actually lead the nation in what it looks like to support striking workers. Thank you so much for your time. I urge you to support this bill.
Okay, thank you, Representative Berg. Chair Becca Fenn will renew her motion that House File 3446 as amended be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion prevails and the bill is on its way.